playwriting and what goes on in a play. And the thing to realize, of course, is that when we say playwriting, we really mean script writing. That's what you, the playwright, create, a script. A document that you then hand to the actors and the directors and the designers, and they actually make the play. Because, as you noticed in the last semester, a play is not just what's on the page. A play is what the actors, the director, and the designer bring to it. And even though the script may stay the same, different actors or different designers or directors may make a very different play, even though the characters are saying the same words. So, as a playwright, you're really a script writer. And the thing to keep in mind is that a script is not a finished product. It's like a set of blueprints. You hand the blueprints to a contractor and they build the house. They're instructions for these other craftspeople to do what they do. The architect gives instructions via the blueprints, they make the house. Same thing, a playwright gives instructions via the script, and the actors make the play, or the director makes the play along with the actors. So the thing to keep in mind is that you need to create a document that will be understood by the actors and understood by the director, and will give them the information they need to make the play that you have in your mind. Just as you can't sort of scribble out a sketch of a house and hand it to a contract and say, here, make this house. If they did, it would not be structurally sound, and it would collapse, and everyone in it would die, and it would be your fault. So, instead, you have an architect who drafts blueprints which follow certain rules, and then they give those blueprints to the contractor, they build the house, no one dies, everyone lives happily ever after, which we'll get to when we talk about structure and endings. Anyway, point being, the script has to contain the information for the actors. Now, there are two things that actors do in a play, in a very basic level. One, they say things. Where's my marker? There it is. Actors say things, and actors do things on stage. I mean, that's basically what a play comes down to, right? There are actors, and either they're saying something or they're doing something. So a script has to contain that information. In a script, the stuff that the characters say is called the dialogue. The dialogue is what the characters say. And of course, you, the playwright, have to write that down. You can't just let the actors come up with it, because then what the actors say may not be what you intend them to say. Similarly, you have what we call stage directions. That says what the characters do. And you remember from the scripts we did in acting, you will recognize what those look like. In the video about format, we'll talk about how to set those up on the page, because of course dialogue looks different from stage directions. But the important thing to know is the basic idea that that's what a script contains. It just contains two things: lists of what the characters say, and then instructions for what the characters do. It's very different than, say, an essay or short story, where there's all these other sorts of things. You can have narration, where you can go inside what the character's thinking, where you can do all this other sort of stuff. A play script is much more limited. It's just what the characters say and what the characters do. Therefore, especially when you're writing stage directions, you've got to be very specific. A stage direction tells the actor what to do. Like a stage direction might say, Mr. Finley goes over and picks up an eraser. And then I would go over and pick up the eraser, because the stage direction told me to do that. But a stage direction can include stuff that an actor can't do. So for example, one trap that many new writers fall into is that they'll put in a stage direction, like Mr. Finley stands looking off into the distance, thinking fondly of his dead gerbil. Now, I can stand looking fondly off into the distance, but how is the audience going to know I'm thinking about my dead gerbil and not my dead rattlesnake? By the way, I have neither a dead gerbil nor a dead rattlesnake. That's not the point. The point is, you can have a stage direction, Mr. Finley looks off sadly into the distance, but you're not going to know what's going on inside the character's mind, unless you have then a line that says, you know, Mr. Finley, oh, my poor gerbil, Danny. It would be very sad. So that's the important thing to keep in mind about stage directions. They let us know what's happening on stage, what the characters are doing, but you can't use them to give us other information, like what's going on inside the character's head. The other thing is, it has to be instructions about what's happening on stage at that moment. So for example, I've seen stage directions. A scene will be going on, and the stage direction is Godzilla bursts through the wall and destroys everything. After destroying the entire city in a wall of carnage, 5 years later, in the aftermath, two people meet and fall in love. And that was like in one stage direction. That doesn't work, because two reasons. One, it's too much stuff for one stage direction. A stage direction literally is something we see happening on stage, one action. The other problem with that stage direction is that it'd be very hard to actually do on stage. It would work pretty well in a movie, but again, we're not writing a screenplay right now. This is a really important point. In film and in television, you have some tools that you don't have on stage. You can go from place to place instantly. You can show Godzilla bursting through a wall, and then you can cut to him tearing down the city. And then you can go to a field and have a little caption that says 5 years later. So that could work in film, but we're not writing film, primarily because writing screenplays is actually harder than writing plays. Later on in the year, we will probably have some opportunity to write some screenplays, and you'll get a chance to see how movies and television are put together. But we need to start at the first level, so we're going to start with playwriting. And so in playwriting, you can't have stage directions that take us wildly off stage. Now, you can certainly have big, crazy things happening on stage. You can totally have Godzilla coming through the wall on stage. But then him tearing up the whole town, how are we going to see that? How do we know that it's 5 years later? If you're going to do these things, you've got to give us the instructions via the script. So that's the important thing to keep in mind about as you start writing a script. A script is going to contain two different sorts of things. What we call dialogue, that's what the characters say, and stage direction, that's what the characters do. These are instructions to the actors, and it's not going to contain anything else. Narrators talking, unless there's a character of yours who's a narrator, they're not going to show up. Things that would happen off stage, things that are happening inside the character's mind, those things don't belong. All you've got is what the characters say and what the characters do, because those are the instructions you're giving to the actors.